It's time for the Everyman, where real man talk.
Let's go. Time to grind, get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime. Signing on the dotted line, cashing checks left and right. That's the way I'm living life.
Hello and welcome to the Everyman. I am your host, Lewis Vines. No, I'm not. My name is Ethan Rowan. Lewis is on holiday. I am here with James and Rhyse. Rhyse Gonsalves, should I say. Rhyse is the performance nutritionist at West Ham's Academy and the West Ham's Women Club at the moment, and a very special guest, very knowledgeable, and someone who I've been dying to pick your brains for. How are you doing today, Rhyse? You all right?
Yeah, well, good, thank you.
Good man. I'm sorry if I butchered your second name there, mate. Sorry, I tend to get stutter and get a bit nervous. But
no, you absolutely nailed it, which is surprising, to be fair. It was good.
Well done, Ethan.
Exactly. We're getting off to a good start. So, as I mentioned, we've got monotone James here. James, how are you doing today, mate? You all right?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. How are you?
Living the dream, mate. Living the dream. Even better to have Rhyse on. I've been perusing his website and his Instagram all day, trying to find ways to get it. It is, mate. It is. Rhyse, I'm a chunky lad. I don't know if you've seen the pod before, but I'm a lad that's battled weight all my life. So to get you on personally, mate, is really something exciting and something, I'm looking forward to picking your brains. I know I've given James a few questions to grill you with, but really the secretly my questions as we go along. So we'll go straight into it, Rhyse. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and our listeners, just a bit about your journey from early on in sport and how you got into it?
Yeah, definitely. So mine was probably quite. Initially, I played sport myself when I was younger. So mainly football, transferred kind of into rugby through my adolescent years. Found out I wasn't half bad at it. Kind of pursued that county, regional level trials for academies and stuff like that when I was around 16, sort of stuff like that. And yeah, loved it. Continued through to uni, and then kind of got to a point where it wasn't going to go pro with it, and I knew I wanted to work around sport, but I couldn't deal with just continuously getting injured. And if you're always injured, you can't work. So I was like, okay, let's maybe step back from that and maybe focus on just supporting them instead. So yeah, I initially went to university and did sports therapy. That was the route I went down, try and work with injured players, rehabilitation, and then I kind of found a bit more of a passion in the gym and kind of helping players excel and get better. And I was like, oh, that's kind of more so where I wanted to be. Ended up pursuing that a bit more. Was a personal trainer for, I'd say about 2-3 years, just in gyms, private clients, online, etc. And then I felt still like something was missing. It wasn't where I wanted to be at that point. I still felt like I could give more. And then I decided to go do a master's in sports nutrition. Really, for a while, I've been hooked on nutrition since I was younger, kind of fixated on it and wanted to always learn more about it. It's one of those parts I probably had the least expertise in and least knowledge. So I was like, oh, this is something I really want to get my teeth into. Whilst I was doing that, I started an internship with Millwall as a sports scientist, and that was a great learning experience. Trying to balance that with my masters, and then during my masters, great education from St Mary's. It basically set me up really nicely. Managed to get some experience with other clubs and during this time, and just individuals. It allowed me to really kind of get out there and get doing the work, which was amazing. And I just completely fell in love with it. And I was set. This was for me. This is what I was going to do. And managed to come out the back of it. A couple of internships off the back with a couple of pro clubs, and then went for the West Ham roles and got in there. So that's where I've been since. Really, that's pretty much my journey in a nutshell. Yeah.
Brilliant. That was quicker than I thought. To be fair, I was expecting war and peace, mate. I'm not gonna lie. You've had such a journey, you know what I mean, and you've accomplished so much, and you're still sort of quite a young age as well, mate. So hats off to you. I mean, just touching there. So obviously you were big into rugby, like you said. What was the point where you transitioned into other sports in the sense of going down the football route as opposed to the rugby route? or did you try to do both? Or obviously, I know you've mentioned you've worked at Millwall. I believe you worked at Watford as well. You went an internship there as well. What sort of drove you towards football opposed to rugby, if you don't mind me asking?
No, it's fine. So I would say as a kid, I was always more of a football fan, and to this day, still more of a football fan. That's always been probably at the heart of me. I've loved it, love playing it, love watching it. If there's any football on, I'll watch it. I don't care who's playing. I'll always watch it. And then I think it was more of I went from the transition of playing football, found out I was pretty good at rugby, expanded on that, I guess, playing wise. And then it was more of when I got to supporting athletes. To be fair, I support athletes privately and stuff in a real mixture of sports. So it's anything from like combat sports to running to cycling. There's a real mix, but in terms of like that key one, I was really drawn to football. I think it might be to do with mainly my passion for it. It's probably the one I have apart from rugby, where I've been there, played it, I understand it, but I have the most, I guess, understanding of, in a sense, of having followed it for 20 odd years, as well as the fact that I would say probably at the moment it's the furthest, I guess, forward, more advanced out of the rest in terms of how they build their teams and their support staff and what they can provide to their players. I think rugby is very close to it. It's building, but football is definitely the starter of that, and it's kind of much more advanced. There's probably a lot more opportunity as well. So I think that was definitely a good route for me to go into, which I knew I'd enjoy.
Fantastic. I mean, just for me, on my personal side of things, I think it's amazing how the fact that you wanted to challenge yourself and put yourself out your comfort zone during that time, and obviously, like you said, going through your masters and going into nutrition, where it's something that you thought, maybe I'm not the strongest in this side of things, and I want to try and improve. And credit to I was saying to you before the pod, I've looked at your website, I've looked at your Instagram, which is something we'll plug at the end. Don't worry. And you've got obviously Billy Mitchell on there, and you've got Chris Wallace, a golfer and a pro footballer, who give you great recommendations, and great feedback. And it's testament that you're not only putting yourself in one box, maybe, because I think it would be the easy route to just go down and say, right, I'm going to be involved in just football, or I'm just going to be exclusive, but you're broadening your horizons. I mean, early on, did you come across any barriers early on when you were sort of doing your internship while trying to juggle your masters and things like that, when you're trying that, I know?
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the biggest ones, if you speak to most people going into support staff roles in sport in general, they're few and far between, and the support in them isn't the greatest. Like normally from a financial standpoint, that most of them aren't paid. You're doing a lot of hours, considering, especially like whilst during my masters. So you're doing that, and then you're trying to work. I was self-employed as a personal trainer at the time, so I was trying to work with all my clients to get my hours in, as well as when you enter a first team football environment, you don't really there's no Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. It is very much, you could end up working 10, 12 days on the trot until you get your next day off, sort of thing. You've got to just follow the schedule and follow the team. And so that was quite tricky. I think that was probably my biggest barrier whilst I was there. It was, can I afford to keep going in and traveling? That became the biggest sticking point. It just, whilst I wanted to give everything I could to it, but it comes to a point where something has to give, and it does eventually. And if you can't do it, so that was the biggest one for me.
100%, mate. 100%.
Can imagine that being really hard as well when you have a specific goal that you want to get to, and you've got all these obstacles in the way, as well as working full time on a master's degree. So hats off to you for that. I also want to say respect for you. I've got respect for you for changing your goals. So you said that you realised that you weren't going to go professional. So I'm guessing at one point in your playing career, you thought you might have a chance of going professional. When you realised that wasn't going to happen, how did you deal with that, and how did you turn it around to make yourself do so well in what you're doing now?
Yeah, it's a good question, actually. It's not something I really think about, to be fair. It's one of those where it kind of feels like it, when I look back, it feels like it went by really, that kind of opportunity, that window kind of went by really quickly. It was one of those where 1 minute you're 16 in, regional or county level and doing trials for, let's say, Saracens and stuff like that, and you're on the cusp and you're there nearly, and then it kind of felt like, oh, I think I know I picked up an injury around the time, and it kind of sent me back from there. And all of a sudden, my mindset was, okay, the next opportunity at university sort of thing. Didn't really.
Oh, we just lost Ethan there. Continue. He'll come back in when he can.
No, yeah, it didn't really look after myself as well. I think at uni as well, I just didn't push on the way I should have. And then again, it kind of just fizzles out, and you kind of get to that point where, I don't know if you guys had it, when you're probably 18, 19, you start thinking, you get into that age where people have normally made it by now, or it's like, oh, I'm turning 20, 21 sort of thing. I'm in university still. There's still a chance you could make it, but you know in your head really like you're probably not going to.
Yeah.
So that was kind of like the thing for me. It was kind of like, oh, just keep going about it. And then it was around that time at uni where it was very much it's not going to happen as much as you could turn back time and do it. Absolutely not. But then it was I think it was not difficult for me. I don't think I really struggled with it. I think it was quite I do like to look for the next opportunity. It's rather than let myself get like bogged down in this hasn't happened. Why has it not happened? It's more of okay, this hasn't happened. What's the closest I can be to that environment and support and help these players and people succeed? And for me, it was, what do I love doing? I love supporting people physically or helping them basically be their best. And it was, okay, I can do that through this, and I really enjoy it. And I basically was like, let's go pursue this and see where that path takes me. And fortunately, I kind of went down that road of going from, physios, S&C to nutrition. So I kind of jumped across the houses a little bit, but kind of ended up where I wanted to be in the end.
Yeah, it's all experience, isn't it?
That's it.
There was a part that you said there I was pretty interested. You said around 18, 19-year-old, when people around you seem to have it like they were like successful. So I don't know about Ethan, but when I was that age, not a lot of my friends had made it by then. I wonder if that is due to your sports background and the level that you were playing at. I'm guessing you had quite a lot of friends who did to start making it and becoming professional, and that's where you might be getting that from. Whereas like me, none of my friends are like athletes or professionals in that manner. So I was wondering, is that where like you're seeing a lot of your friends start to make it? Is it through the sports industry?
Do you know what? I'd probably say the group that I kind of progressed with when I was younger was probably around that age group. It wasn't many of them that went on to go pro, but the ones that did, I'd say, were probably around the unique ones, the brilliant players and stuff like that. They were around the 18, 19, really kicked on and were at that top level. There were some, especially around university, like a good handful of them went on to have very good. Well, have gone on to, they're still playing. They're in good careers. Some are, international level rugby and stuff like that, which is brilliant. So yeah, you do get to that point. Whereas also, I think when I was at that was probably one of my lowest standards that I was at the university. So when I saw them, and in that environment, you kind of see the gap, you see the disparity, and you kind of think, okay, yeah, I'm not there.
Yeah. No, I get what you're saying 100%. And James, credit you there, 2 banging questions off the bounce. How's about that reset?
Cheers,
first for James, mate.
How was the tone?
Great. Not the best, I'm not going to lie, but we'll get there.
I'll work on it.
Well, Rhys has fallen asleep. Right, back in the room, Rhys. I'll bring you back, don't worry. You made a great point there about the fact that watching other people succeed, and I just want to touch on something from my point of view. First of all, I just want to say I'm 30 years old, 26 stone, and I'm not giving up on being a pro footballer. I'm just going to put that out there. Anyone watching this who's an agent or a manager at a football club, you want to say me, I'm not giving up. Like Rhys at the moment, I will come and play for you. I'll do the Ben Foster and come out of retirement on that side. But yeah, I found it really tough because when I was younger, a lot of my friends were in like something, it was called Monks Eaton Football Academy, and basically it was a sixth form, but it was run like a little football academy at high school, and loads of my pals did it. And you would train Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. You would train Monday, Tuesday, Friday. You would have a game on the Wednesday against the likes of Newcastle in the 18s or 21s. You would play other colleges, things like that, and you were seen as the elite. and often people will get invited to go train for Newcastle or Sunderland, things like that. It was a gateway, and I never quite made it into that, and that's something that I'll always regret, because I watched everyone have so much respect for those people, for my pals, and I had so much respect for them. I was dying to get involved and be at reach of them. So I really resonate in the fact that it is something that a lot of the everyman will struggle with, is probably watching their friends excel and maybe not hitting the heights, whether it's through injury like yourself, Rhyse, or you want to take other avenues. And for me personally, it was my weight. I know Lewis, he'll hate saying this, but Lewis, who I know he spoke to, he played for Plymouth Argyle as a youngster. It's a running joke that we always mention that because it gets him annoyed. But
even when he's not here.
Even when he's not, he's on holiday somewhere, so you'll not care. But yeah, so I can really resonate with that, and I think, like I say, testament to you for taking the ownership and saying, well, I still want to be involved in sports somehow, whether that's as your own sort of with your own business, and strength and conditioning, obviously nutrition, things like that, or whether you go down the actual sport of, like you're saying, with Millwall, Watford, West Ham, where you're working now. And I just want to touch on the sort of West Ham. I've got a few things that I would like to pick out, if that's all right. So obviously, how did you get that opportunity, if we can start at the beginning?
I think the biggest thing, was the fact that I did so many placements and put myself out there like quite a lot in the years prior to actually going for the role. Although it wasn't necessarily that role, it was in these environments, or trying to get as close to it as possible to show I've learned, I've been around this kind of atmosphere, I can do the job. I think a lot of people do end up kind of coming out with a sports degree and kind of expecting, if I apply for a job at a top football club, that I deserve the role almost because I've got the degree.
Yeah.
So I did spend, I think, 2 years before actually finishing my master's and going for the role. I think I voluntarily worked for, I want to say 4 to 5 clubs. And that was just, again, completely free, just me traveling in as and when I can, just to get as much hands-on experience as possible, be in amongst the environment and just learn, and just do the job. Especially like during my masters, I just wanted to start doing the job. So it was who's happy, who hasn't got anyone kind of covering this provision, who wants someone who's going to come and do it for free whilst they're studying. And it meant that I got to actually just do what I'm learning to do. So even to the point, I think after Millwall, I was looking for another opportunity. Had a non-league side, Welling, who I ended up basically getting in contact, being put into touch with by a friend, and they are probably step 7, step 8. And so again, they train once a week, play on a weekend sort of thing, and I went in just to do their nutrition. And it was kind of like it didn't matter what level it was at, it was me, I was still doing the job. The sport doesn't change no matter the level. It's exactly the same. 50 minutes, they're all hitting similar, not as much load, but they're all hitting very similar, metrics on the pitch. They need the exact same things. So it's kind of like this doesn't change anything. It's me doing the role. And I think that helps massively when you go for these roles. So by the time I got to finishing my masters and applying for the West Ham role, again, I had probably 4 or 5 clubs on my CV, and it was a good couple of professional clubs, elite, Premiership or Championship level, around that kind of that mark. So it was, I think that really helped me, 1, stand out, and 2, I think it just helped me in general. So by the time I got into that role, anyone will tell you when they come out, it's just massive imposter syndrome, and it is one of those things. You go into your first role, I've been doing this in other places, but now you're actually like, it's your role. And so that was the initial feeling. But then those voluntary roles and experience set me up so well without me really even realizing. So when I got into it, I was able to kind of just fly into it and kind of really throw myself into it without too many worries. After a week, I felt pretty comfortable.
No, that sounds quite a journey. Like your actual sort of LinkedIn profile, your website, Instagram, it doesn't half cover the miles you've done, does it? You've been an absolute journeyman, and I think that's testament to you again. Sorry, I'm piping you off on this podcast tonight, but it seems like you put the hard yards in that not many people would do, and you're now on that trajectory. of actually going to where you want to be, whether that's sort of West Ham at the moment or as we'll come on the future of Rhyse later on. But yeah, that's something that a lot of people, especially the everyman or every woman, potentially won't see the side of it. Obviously, you're seeing there people are coming out of masters looking for pro jobs in Premier League clubs or Championship clubs, and they're almost expecting it, but maybe don't want to do the hard yards. And going out there and doing that, that's something I would recommend to anyone, as obviously based on your story, and actually being able to go and sort of get the experience, even whether it's like say on a training once a week on a Tuesday, one game, you're going in the pouring rain, you're having to drive, you're having to pay out your own pocket, but it's the experience that you get later on in life, and it'll help. You know what I mean? Like, no doubt you'll have been in some great situations, but also probably some terrible situations and had awkward conversations, and that's what's put you in good stead now. So I think that's again credit to you, mate. In all honesty, I'd want to ask a bit more of a personal. How did you juggle all that? Because we've got Matthew Slater, who's not on tonight. He was dying to be on, but he's got clients, obviously, as you can understand, being a S&C coach along the way as well. And how did you juggle that of the fact that, it would cost financially, you're not getting potentially paid? Obviously, I know I don't want to go too personal, but how did you cope, obviously, with the Masters, doing this sort of work that you're not getting paid for, obviously petrol or diesel, travel, things like that, your hours, your time? How did you cope and how did you manage, if you don't mind me asking?
No, I think it's good. Yeah, not gonna lie, it was tough. It was very tough. I think it was at the point where obviously we just had the pandemic as well, so everything was kind of thrown off because of that as well. So even more so, it's not normal. It's that bit tougher. And then I think just being able to commute to these places, it was kind of a trade-off. It was right. Do I travel in today and then maybe not be able to afford, some part of my shopping or something else down the line, or I don't know, I'd have to sacrifice this, or if there's like a social gathering, so that it was basically like, well, I can't afford to go because I'm prioritizing this right now. And for the time that I was doing it, it was really tricky. It was a kind of, it was to the point probably like living day to day almost in that sense where I was at. I was out renting with my partner, and it was basically just like throwing everything into this, and I need to keep this going in order to benefit from it later on. Like I knew it would come eventually, but I knew for that potential like 6 months to a year, it was going to be a bit tricky. And it was trying to do those things like, okay, you've got to cover rent, you've got to cover bills, you've also got to cover your petrol. Can you get a food shop? And it was to the point where, again, and this is also, I have to say, it's nothing also out of the ordinary for a lot of people. Like a lot of people who do these, they don't get reimbursed, they don't get any form of pay, and they still have to work on the side. So it is kind of the norm, which hopefully we can start moving in the right direction and try and, pay interns and really support, because they have such an impact on the club when they help out as well, that it needs to be kind of, at least let's not have them out of pocket for just coming in to learn. And I think that's such a big thing, but no, yeah, it was, it is tough. And you do understand why a lot of people aren't willing to do it if they're not, in a good position to be able to kind of fully commit and say, oh, do you know what? I know I'm going to be 100% all right if I commit to this. Because I think anyone who goes for it, they normally have to accept there is some form of, risk or that trade-off where it might be a 6 months to a year where you're going to have to sacrifice quite a lot. Yeah.
No, I get that. And that's something that, like you said, not many people will do. Not many people will be willing to sacrifice. James, obviously monotone James here, he's potentially going to move for a job. Obviously, it's probably more extreme, but he's looking at jobs potentially abroad, things like that. So he's now in that probably stance of having to do the trade-offs financially. I mean, James, just to bring it to you before we go on with Rhyse, how are you finding that? And are you doing a similar route? And yeah.
So the job that I do now is pretty specific. So that the job that I'm hoping to get when I'm out there, like it'll pay like better than this one, which is good. And so I've not had to make any sacrifices or anything yet, but obviously I will, like being away from family, like not even like a drive away. Like I have to be able to fly home, or they'll have to fly to me. But all in all, like no struggles at the minute. It will be hard when we're away, but like I'll be with my wife, so we'll have each other, and we'll both be in the same boat. I mean, currently we're living 6 hours away from our family, so it's not easy at the moment. But we get through it because we're together. So when we do move abroad, or if we do move abroad, we're kind of a little bit set up. It's been like that sort of like trajectory where it's been hard, but we got over it, and it'll get hard again, and we'll get over it. You just gotta make your way through it. I think step by step, and that's why I want to say fair play to you, Rhyse, for going through them challenging times where you've been struggles and you had to make them sacrifices. And you said you experienced a lot of things that you didn't really want to be doing as such, like as a career, but you stuck at it, and that experience has got you to where you are today. So fair play for that.
How cute is he, Rhyse? How cute is he? Bless him. I mean,
I love it.
Love it. This is why we talk. Rhyse, right, back
Exactly.
to you, mate. Sorry, enough about James and these sad stories. Put me to sleep. Right, so Rhyse, you work at West Ham. As I've mentioned already, you work in the men's academy and the women's first team. Am I right with that?
Yes, you are.
Brilliant. And what age groups would you mind me asking if you are working in the academy?
Yeah, so it's from under 9s all the way up to under 21s.
Brilliant. So there's such a broad age group there. Would you mind going into a bit of detail about sort of the tasks, the day-to-day tasks you might do with the academy first, and we'll go on the women's side of things? Is that all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, the day-to-day is more the older boys. It's the 18s, 21s. So it's like the 2 steps before that first team. They're very, I say the contact time is similar in that it is very much about, okay, it's one setting up the nutrition around the academy, and making sure that we're trying to get everything to a point where are we doing the most? Are we doing the best we can? And that nothing's kind of being forgotten about or left out of that. Like we're not leaving too much to chance. We've got strategies in place. We've got information, education, everything's happening to kind of make sure both players and staff understand what I'm trying to get across and what the players ideally need to be hearing, what's best practice.
Yeah.
And then once we've got that kind of instilled practice where it kind of runs itself in that sense, like we all know the plan, we know the culture, we know what we want to do from a nutrition standpoint, brilliant. Then it becomes much more personal for each player. So each player, I'll have one-to-ones with each player, and we will create like what do they need specifically for what does their training plan look like, their match day prep, their physical development goals, because obviously some are probably maturing different rates. So do some need to be focusing on some things such as like gaining muscle mass? Do some need to be, are they happy where they are? Do we need to just keep monitoring where they're at? And the same is, you'll also see like some who their nutrition knowledge maybe isn't there. They're still young. A lot of them live at home with their parents, so they don't have to cook for themselves. So do they have basic cooking skills? And it's trying to basically give them that basic knowledge to be able to make the right decisions. I think a lot of the outside see nutrition as, oh, I'll write you a full plan and we dictate everything for them, where it's very much the opposite. And we want to give them the best education and knowledge and be able to ask questions, come to me, that there's no, monitoring or policing from me. It's purely, I'm helping you make better decisions. And if someone says, oh, do you know what, last night what they say is rubbish food or something like that, again, I reiterate, there's no such thing. That's fine. Like, thanks for telling me, for being so honest. But also is to kind of take out that there's negative notions to food, because there's not.
Yeah.
Food's a food. And it's kind of getting them to really understand that, because we know that football environments, especially if we go back 20, 30 years, that there's a lot of phrases and beliefs that kind of sit within football that are untrue or not helpful. They can be negative on people's, physical, mental health.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is kind of, drive out those stereotypes and reinforce the practice and the good comments and the good things we want to hear and say. And it's slowly coming along. We are seeing good change. The more that the staff change as well, this is why it's so important to get their buy-in, so that they can also echo that message, because these are the people that these players look up to, that the coaches, that they respect them. They've been there, they've done it. Most of them have been pro and now are coaching. So it's that opportunity for them to say, no, I'm reinforcing that and I'm going to say this. And as soon as it comes from them, that it really, really hits home and we get a really good positive change. So yeah, that's mainly with the older boys in terms of having the setup, and then the individualization to help them, make good decisions when they're at the club, and more importantly, when they're away from the club. We don't have control over that, so it's just giving them their best chance to understand, right, when you go home, a good meal might look like this, you might need this, and then they can have that freedom to say, right, what does that look like for me? And it allows them to run with it, which is good, because food is very personal. It's a very personal thing, like taste and preferences. It's no two people are going to be the same with nutrition or food. It's down to that person, and that's how we will always kind of enforce it and preach about it. And then with the younger boys, there's a little bit of contact with like the 16s, 15s, who are just on that cusp of, going into the kind of full-time program.
Yeah.
And that's, again, more of like an educational standpoint. It's to make sure that they are ready and they understand not just the basics, but what fueling and what nutrition in football looks like, because you need to know that, but you also need to know, right, you're also putting your body through a lot. Are you preparing for games? Are you fueling up right? And are you recovering properly? Are you doing both? And also, they're at that age where they're growing the most as well. Are they factoring that into account?
Yeah.
They also probably play for their school team, and they probably do cross country. They probably do all these other sports at school and around it, that people often forget. Like, sometimes parents forget that not only are you growing, they're probably expending so much energy in a day or in a week, because they're playing football X number of times. They're also doing additional sports or playing extra games at lunch or in the playground. So they burn a lot of calories. There's a massive energy requirement on like teenagers, those adolescents, as they're going through that puberty phase. So much so that they require more than the Premier League first team players on a day-to-day basis. It's massive. And I think that is an area which us as nutritionists are really trying to hone in on and kind of highlight, because I think it gets missed by a lot of people who just, I don't think have it's not been brought to the front enough for them to say, like, oh, this is how much they're doing and they really need this. And it's not like necessarily like, look at parents, it's not necessarily their fault. It's just kind of like someone needs to tell them. It's like you can help them actually by doing this for them. Which is really important. And then with the younger boys at the 9s to 11s, it's normally very basic, and we try and give them some like practical skills. So, just making very simple food with their hands, and kind of get playful with it and hopefully make food fun.
No, it sounds spot on. To be fair, I think it's the old proverb: give a man a fish or a woman a fish, and they'll eat. Teach a man or a woman to fish, and they'll feed for the rest of their life. You know what I mean? So it's quite unique that you're doing that now, because I don't, correct us if I'm wrong, I don't think that was always the norm, especially at the younger ages. Would I be right in that from your perspective? And like you're saying already, you're trying to put it more so at the forefront and try and advise the younger generation of smarter choices, which I think is something that maybe wasn't put across in the previous instances. Would you think I'm right in that sense?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I think that's relatively new. I'd say that everything from, if we look at sport, it starts from the first team down. It will always go, right, what's our main focus, and then it will trickle down. And I definitely feel like that it's been it's become more of a focus over the last, like 10 years plus sort of thing, where people are saying, no, do you know what, we need to give this sort of attention and education to the younger age groups, and just how important that is.
Yeah. No, well, it sounds, well, clearly if people are wanting to sort of have this homegrown talent, the academies, things like that, I think a lot of attention's turned more towards that, especially, I mean, you look at the likes of Brighton, things like that. Is it Evan Ferguson, the young lad who's playing up front? He's just signed a new contract. He's doing amazing. People like that who you can nurture rather than going out and spending 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 million on that side. Just before we go on a bit more in depth with you, Rhyse, I just want to ask James a quick question. James, what's your diet like for Rhyse and the everyday listener? Now, Rhyse, we might get you to critique James's diet, depending how bad it is.
Yeah. So me and the missus just started a diet this week, so we are eating a lot better. So we've been having like a soup for tea, like homemade soup, like vegetable, meat, whatever, which we've been loving, to be honest, with a couple of bread rolls, and that's been good. And then for my dinners, been having a couple of wraps, some cheese and ham, some spinach, and then for my breakfast, having a smoothie and a breakfast bar. So pretty low calories. And then working out, we've been working out a couple of times this week, which we've not really done before. As I've said before as well, I really struggle for motivation to work out, because my shift pattern, it goes a week of days and I do a week of nights and then a week of days. So to get that routine, I'm finding it hard. But for the last couple of weeks, I've been on days and I've been getting in a really good routine, sleeping better, eating better, burning more calories, feeling better as well, to be honest. But yeah, that's my diet as it stands.
Rhyse is regretting coming on this podcast after hearing you just describe that diet. I'm regretting coming on the podcast after hearing you describe that. I don't think anyone's described their day going starting at the end and working backwards to the morning as well.
I don't know why I did that. I did that.
Rhyse, you're in for a treat. Well, I may as well tell you mine, Rhyse, and then you can probably faint with what I would eat. So I've just had back surgery in December, emergency back surgery, and it's obviously due to my weight and other things. But I'm a big binger. That's probably why I didn't make it as a pro footballer, because I just love to binge. So what I'll do is I'll try and do intermittent fasting, so I'll not eat for 18 hours or something. I'd go to the extreme, then I'd go home and I'd have 500 grams of pasta with 2 or 4 chicken breasts. I make like a sauce, and I have 2 garlic baguettes as well, and then like have protein yogurts just to health, for the health as well, sort of thing. So I'm completely in the other spectrum. I've got away from those days. But if you wanted to hear something that was really worth listening to, that is a meal and a half if you want to try it, Rhyse. On that side of it. I should try it. What about you, Rhyse? What about you? Have you got any specific diets before we go on the West Ham side?
No, I think the key that I stand by and I try and push is not so much like a diet thing. It's more of a it's like an individual approach to it, and kind of just fueling and how for what you need and how you are as a person. So it, rather than I know that like intermittent fasting, like you mentioned, like if we look at the smaller time windows where maybe we say, oh, up until midday we're not eating, sort of thing, from waking up, like it has its benefits in the sense of you're kind of losing a feeding window, which if some people need that kind of motivation and support with it, which absolutely fine, it works for people, and if that works for you, like that's great. And as you say, I think you found the reason that with a large window like 18 hours, you see what happens with when you go that long without, and then you try it and then you want to go to eat, it can end in necessarily the wrong things, because all of a sudden the hormones are kicking in and you're just hungry, and your body will crave obviously the things that aren't going to help you, and then you end up more calorie dense, and the issues kind of like come from there. But personally, it's more of I always stand by protein, is keep protein high and make sure it's consistently throughout the day. Protein is great, obviously muscle maintenance and growth if you're trying to achieve that. but also for satiety. So it will just make you feel full for longer. So protein takes a long time for us to break down in the gut. So if you have it and you're having it every 3 or so hours, you'll feel very full from it, from just having a really good quality source of protein. So I'll always try and make sure that is in every meal from breakfast through to dinner. And so my day normally looks like a breakfast, maybe a morning snack. If not, it'll go straight to lunch, then like an afternoon snack, then a dinner, then a pre-bed snack.
Nice.
But that's kind of my set routine. It kind of works well around me getting up early and going for a run, coming back, having breakfast and stuff like that. It kind of works well into a routine for me around work as well. But yeah, so that's normally like the layout of it. And I'd say, yeah, every one of those meals or snacks has a really good protein source in. So it's either like, 20, 30 grams plus of protein. And then I guess it depends on how you're feeling. I think if I'm feeling, do you know what, I'm a bit flat at the moment, I'm probably under eating a little bit, then I will probably increase a little bit. So like we tend to go by, right? So carbohydrates might be a third of a plate rather than a quarter of a plate. So I'm just trying to up them a little bit, and there's some extra calories there. Fats are responsible for basically everything else apart from you've done muscle maintenance and health, and you've done energy through carbs. Fats will just basically help with everything else. So that is your heart, your focus, your brain capacity. Like there's so much, your brain health. There's so much there that it offers, like gut health. It does so much for you, your immunity. So once I've done the protein and I've got my carbs out, then it'll basically, all right, let's get a few bits of fats on the plates. Normally around like 30% of each plate will be some sort of fats, whether that's like good fats. So it's like avocado, nuts, some sorts of cheeses, stuff like that. That's typically what I go for. And so I try and keep it as colourful as possible. So lots of veg, and then maybe like a fruit bowl or a mixed fruit with Greek yogurt before bed or something like that, just to try and get as much I can of different vitamins and stuff like that. And that's purely for my own health, just so like I feel good, I feel energetic, I'm not feeling deficient. I know I'm not deficient in anything that's going to make me feel a bit unwell or a bit run down, and keep my immune system up. And that's pretty much like how each meal will look for me. And it's not always perfect, but it's very much a individual thing. As I say, it's listen to your body and listen to yourself. If you feel like really full and maybe not so great, you've probably overeaten, or that's when you start seeing, okay, do you know what, progressively over a few weeks, maybe you feel like you've been a bit heavier and stuff like that. So you're probably like, oh, do you know what, I probably have overeaten. You think about your diet and how you're eating, you can probably just reel back a little bit on, maybe let's reduce the carbs a little bit, let's reduce the fats a little bit. They're always going to be the go-tos in terms of, dropping it down, more so the carbs. That's not to say eliminate them. That's just let's take them off a little bit and let's see how we go. And as long as we feel good physically, we can do what we need to do. We can get up good. We can work without losing concentration in the day and without feeling tired, fatigued, and run down. We know we're probably at a good point. And then same goes for if we're trying to lose some weight, then we'll probably go, okay, let's reduce them even a little bit more, and then take them down. We'll still keep the protein the same, because that's going to do us a favor, keep us full. It's going to stop us from maybe binging or maybe having extra food around our set meal times, almost like when it works into our routine.
Yeah.
And then if we're kind of just dropping those carbs down a little bit, maybe a little bit less on the fats, and we're doing that consistently through every meal, the protein's keeping us full meal to meal. We'll go back to bed each night in that calorie deficit, which is the key. And that's what we want to achieve from day to day.
Brilliant. No, well, that's really insightful, isn't it? I like how James is agreeing, like he's got to lose any weight and he's not the overweight one here.
No, honestly, mate, guess how much I weigh?
I don't know. Off your face, I'm going to say 19 stone. That's horrible. I shouldn't say that. 14 stone. Rhyse, what's your guess?
Oh, I have no idea. I wouldn't.
Oh, yeah. I was 14 stone 10 when I weighed myself on Sunday. That's the heaviest I've ever been. And that's why I'm dieting now, because I'm sick of looking at myself. But as you were talking about food, I've got a few myths that a lot of people are misinformed about. So I'd hit you with them. So while we're on the subject, if you don't mind. So the first one, is breakfast the most important meal of the day?
So it's a really good question, and a lot of people ask it. So I'd say it does depend on your schedule. Like, it depends on you as a person. So some people will need breakfast; they can't function without having that morning meal. But others can happily not have it and feel just fine, and still be able to kind of get that next feeding window, which is typically like late morning or lunch. And again, they'll be absolutely fine. It is very much a breakfast is very much like a personal thing. It's a preference thing. I myself will flick between the two. Like, sometimes I can go until 11, 12 o'clock, where I know that I'm just not feeling hungry when I wake up that morning. I know I'll make up for it later in the day, and I'll get all my feeding windows in. I'll get enough protein in the day, etc. I just know that I'm missing out that first one. Whereas other times I will feel it, and I'm like, I'll wake up and I'm like, I'm really hungry, and I will eat that morning. And so it is very much on your personal choice and your personal preference. There is a lot around it to say that, if we start with breakfast, then we're starting the day off with a good protein breakfast and stuff like that. Then it can help the rest of the day, because obviously if we say we wake up at 7 o'clock and we're going till 12, then the likelihood of us being really hungry around 12 o'clock and maybe overeating can be a little bit higher. So in which case, that there is that, if it's someone who feels like that and maybe can't control lunchtime because of those that having that big window, then they might benefit from having a breakfast, because they might be like, okay, let's break it down a little bit. I know that by the time I get to 12 o'clock, I've had something at 8. I'm still feeling relatively full, and I know I can have something without going overboard. Whereas others will be just like, oh, that's absolutely fine. I won't eat in the morning, and I'll just have lunch, and they will still make the decisions best for them. Yeah. So yeah, definitely personal on that one.
Yeah, definitely. Ethan, do you eat breakfast?
Oh, I'm getting a question now. I tend to not eat breakfast, so I like to fast. That's a big thing for me. I'm a big fan of getting up 5:30, working out, whether that's spin class, gym, anything like that. And I'll just skip breakfast and not eat the lunch. Obviously, Rhys, I mentioned you and James before. Obviously, my restrictive window was that large. I was falling off the wagon every night pretty much in Gordon. So I've gone for a shorter window. I do recommend it to people because, if you're in even an 8-hour window, it's hard to stuff so many calories in your face compared to just getting up first thing and eating something like that. Sounds pretty basic. But yeah, I skip breakfast. And I also want to give people a tip for listening to this. Never go food shopping when you're hungry, because then you just buy everything that's on the shelf. Anything you want is danger. What about you, James? Do you have breakfast, mate?
Yeah, I do. Usually it'll be something small like a breakfast bar, but because I'm dieting, I'll have a smoothie, like a fruit smoothie with some almond milk and some protein in there as well. And I tell you what, this last week has been pretty good, to be honest. I've been feeling good, feeling a lot better. And I hadn't really thought about why. I thought it was because I was sleeping better, but I guess it's like an accumulation of the sleeping and the eating better, which I didn't think about until I've talked to you, Rhys. So maybe I'll keep doing it.
No, it does sound like that. It's one of those where you've made. We always talk about our main role of our job is to try and build habits, and it's not necessarily to completely change your mindset. We're not trying to be like, all right, you've started here overnight, you're going to go here. It's how can we change one habit at a time, and it's if we continue to do that, then we're going to get somewhere. Because if I tell you to give you something and say do this, you're not building it into your routine. You're not trying to act like you're not motivated to want to do it. It's kind of I've been told to do this, let me follow this. Whereas if we can take one habit at a time and work on it and say, right, this is something that you want to do, this is something that you like, let's see if we can factor it in and maybe like switch it out for this what you're currently doing. And then that it's not that big a sacrifice, because you're kind of doing all right, this is just an alternative. I still like it. It's just going to save me on whatever your goal is. It'll push you towards it, and you're not going to notice it too much, and you're going to be quite happy doing it because you're the one who's kind of decided to do it. I've just kind of helped up. And then all of a sudden you've done it for a week or two and you're like, you know what, it's really easy. And that's one habit done. Okay, what else was on the list? Oh, so maybe let's go to this one now. And if we do that one by one, then you're just picking up these healthy habits, which will become ingrained in you. And you'll be like, oh, this is all I know now. And that's what your first thought will go to. And that's what we try and achieve.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, I will. I will start doing it a lot more often. I think having more protein. I think that might be the key for me. Is another myth. Do carbs make you gain weight, or are they fattening?
So yeah, there's a big one around carbs being evil, and definitely one needs debunking. So there's nothing wrong with carbs at all. Like, not at all. If we think about what they are, they're purely there for energy. Like, their sole use and only is energy for us. They don't increase, fat intake, and and they're not going to harm you in any way. It's purely one of those where when we have carbs, they help us retain water. So naturally, water weight will go up a little bit. So if we ever step on a scale after eating loads of carbs, a lot of it is water. Purely that. It's not stored. It's just something that is a byproduct of it. So that's absolutely fine. And then also, if the only time it comes to an issue where, okay, are we gaining weight? The odds are it comes back to that calorie intake. So if we're ever talking about gaining weight or gaining fat, it's because we are over consuming calories. And those calories can come from, anywhere. It can be too much protein, too much fat, too much carbohydrates. The majority of it is, could be the carbohydrates and fat. That's where it will come down to, in terms of we're overeating. Therefore, we're eating too much than what we're expending in that day, and we're doing that on a consistent basis, which means over time we're slowly accumulating more and more, and our bodies take it on. So again, if we ate loads of carbs in a day, and we're talking, let's say a lot, you binged on carbs, let's say, but you stayed under calories. Yes, health-wise, it's probably not the best because you've not got your nutrients in, you've not got everything you needed, you've not got protein in, etc. But if your calories balanced out, then your weight will stay the same. You're not going to gain fat from that. So it's one of those where utilize carbs. I tell people, like, utilize carbs. Like, they're there for a reason. They're good, and most of the fun stuff is carbs, and that's what kind of why I think gives it a bad rep. But they are there for a purpose. Like, we need them for energy. Our brain is the only organ that runs solely on carbohydrates, so it needs them as well. So when we start cutting them down, you see people doing diets or like fads and stuff like that. Let's say they pick up keto or something like that. We see them, brain, they can get a bit tired or lose concentration a little bit more because the energy just plummets because there's a lack of carbs coming in, stuff like that. 100% utilize your carbs. Good for fueling, good for recovery, and they'll get you through the day. They will allow you to get up and do your job and be active, be social.
Yeah.
So Rhys, you're telling me how many garlic baguettes can I have of a night time and not put weight on? That is the £1 million question, mate.
£1 million question.
£1 million question. Don't worry, you don't have to answer that.
Half a kilo of pasta.
Half a kilo, mate. That's what I do. It's bulking season after all. Bulking season. Sorry, James. I'll let you keep on with your myths.
Yeah, I've got two more. Is it healthy to always be in a calorie deficit?
I don't think we ever want to be permanently in one. It's not like a thing we should aim to always be in and just consistently losing. I think the whole point of it is to, one, when we do it safely and moderately. So it's a small deficit as possible. Is in an ideal world, like that's what we want to achieve. It's right. We're going to do it. We're only a couple hundred maybe under, and therefore for us to lose weight, it will take weeks, months, etc. But we're doing it in a really sustainable and healthy way. By doing it like that, also the odds of it staying off are much higher because you've done it at such a gradual rate that you are just adapting with it. You're building your routine around it, and therefore you've kind of settled into your new weight by the time you get there. Whereas if we drop massively, and let's say we're going over 500 a day more under, then we can start, getting a bit of problems with it, because we'll drastically drop weight. But then we're not dealing with any of the actual core issues. We're not actually improving habits. We're not improving our eating or our knowledge. And therefore, as soon as we stop and we get to a point where we either we consciously stop, or it just slowly kind of breaks and you start eating a little bit more without really thinking about it, and then it builds back up, and all of a sudden you're back up to where you started. It's one of those which is not ideal either way. So we want to kind of slowly, but focus on that slow loss if we are doing one, and make it realistic. Like let's get to a point. And also, if we're doing like that, it's not too much strain on our body. We're not gonna, feel the effects too much. We're not gonna get fatigued all the time. We're not gonna struggle to do some tasks or be able to, exercise and do things that we need to do every day or want to do every day. So the key is ideally that we use it as a purpose to kind of get to where we want to be, and then we maintain. We find out, okay, what's our maintenance, what's our balance. Let's now find that, and let's be good and build these routines, build these habits, build these patterns, and try and stay where we are, but rather than one drastically coming down or forever dieting or trying to come down on it, or constantly going up and down and causing these like rebounds because we're dropping too fast and shooting back up again.
Yeah, so it's really interesting to hear that, actually. So having a smaller deficit for a prolonged period of time is better than a massive deficit for a shorter period of time. I never thought of that, but you do hear about a lot of people who make that extreme change to eat a lot less calories and work out a lot more, and as soon as they stop doing that, all the weight comes piling back on. And it kind of makes sense of what you just said there, to build the habit of doing it a little bit by a little bit, until you reach your goal, and then you can stick at it as well because you've ingrained that habit. So that was interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's it. And do you know, it's fun enough. Like it's one of those where I know I used to. Again, you look back and you think, why? Like you watch. I don't know if you ever watched The Biggest Loser, and you say, you look at it and you basically think that it's basically torture. Like what they're doing it's so unsafe and it's so extreme. Yeah. And then you look at them and you look at the amount they lose because they're going from the way they're built being to maintain probably 4,000 plus calories a day is what they need to stay where they're at. But they're being told, all right, you're down to like 800 to 1,000 a day. So of course the weight is going to just strip off them. But at the same time, they get them doing ridiculous exercises throughout the day, which most of us wouldn't do, even in peak fitness or thing like that. So they're asking them to do a lot of this stuff, which then is exacerbating that. Therefore, they're dropping weight at an insane rate. And then when they leave the show, all we see is all of them just go straight back up, because throughout the whole thing, meals have been cooked for them. They've not been taught what better choices look like. They've not been taught any sort of education that's actually going to help them in the long run. They're going to help them in life. So as soon as they get home, they go back to all their old eating habits, which might be, really over consuming at lunch and dinners and having several courses, and rather than trying to think, oh, do you know what, I've learned so much on here, which they haven't. So as a really extreme example, that's what my brain always goes to is one of those where we don't want to be in that situation. It's like it's one of those slow and steady will win the race. Basically, we'll always do better.
Yeah, absolutely. For the last one then, the price of eating healthy is too expensive when you can buy a lot of shittier food for a lot less.
Again, it's a tough one. I think my way around it, I say, is lots of veg is fairly cheap. If you can stock up on a lot of veg, I think pretty cheap. You can go to most of them, like some of them are all under £1. Like you can get like 29p or set up to 75p broccolis and stuff like that. And these are all very, nutritious and fibrous foods that one will make you feel full, really help your immune system and help your overall health. So if we think about, okay, all the veg we can get, brilliant. Again, meat I think is expensive always as well, but that's always going to be a key factor in any meal as well. So it's kind of one of those, we all know, right, if we're a meat eater, then we're going to buy that. And then around that, again, I think we can get most carbs fairly cheap now, like pasta, rice and stuff. Like you can get a good size bag now. I think that will last you a while, and you can get, it's not too bad. So I'd say, I think there's a perception that it's really expensive, and don't get me wrong, that some of it can be. But I think that buying either in bulk, I think sometimes a meal prepping is a good one to do, because then you're utilizing all the meals. I know that sometimes, like here, we'll try and cook a dinner that's big enough to last another day or two, so that if I'm normally at the club and my partner normally has that for lunch for the next 2 days, sort of thing like that. So we'll try and really utilize it and make it go the distance. And also it just gives us a good chance where we can kind of make a meal where we can throw loads of different vegetables in and chuck it all in one pot or one tray. Like a good tray bake always goes down well, sort of thing, and just get everything in. And we know we're getting a real variety, and it's really going to fill us up, really going to make us feel full. But all we've really had is, maybe like potatoes, veg and chicken, something like that. So I think that it's also about making decisions around it as well, like trying to think value for money in that sense. It can be tricky, by 100%. But I think it can take also a bit of practice to kind of see, like, maybe, I think I always say the easiest thing to do is start of the week, we'll try and plan out the meals for the week. And I think by making that one decision, it really helps us out with decision making. So rather than coming home being like, what's for dinner, we end up making something really rubbish that we don't enjoy, and it's just kind of like a panic decision. We normally end up being really planned out, and everything from that kind of leads to better decisions in terms of, right, cool, we've done our list, let's go to the shops, we know exactly what we're getting, it will do all these meals for the week, and we know that we don't necessarily go picking on extra aisles because everything's to the list, we know everything's mapped out for, so I don't need to on the extra aisles being, oh, do I want to get this just in case? Because we've got everything planned out, I know I'm not going to need it. So yeah, I think it's one of those where it's tricky. It's a tough one to answer, but yeah, I think it's definitely doable if like a bit of practice with it, maybe.
Yeah, I definitely recommend the meal planning as well. Me and my missus have been doing that, and the money you save when you go shopping as well, especially when you got a list. It's crazy. You're not just going picking up random stuff that you normally would because it looks good. What were we saying there, Ethan?
Oh, no, before you rudely interrupted.
Sorry, mate.
I was just about to go say, garlic baguettes on cheap, boys. Garlic baguettes are not cheap.
Just essentials ranging, as there.
Mate, what do you think I am? I'm a princess. I have to have the finest garlic baguette.
I just cheap ones.
Just get the cheap ones. Oh, mate.
Less than £1.
Oh, Rhys, don't. I like the Upland.
You could have 3.
Mate, 2 quality ones will never go miss. Never go miss. But no, I appreciate that good segment there, James. Rhys, you're the first person we've got on there to myth debunk. So appreciate that. Some good ones there. Taking it back to your side of things now, Rhys. Obviously, we've talked about you working in the academy, but you actually work with the West Ham women's first team as well. That's right, isn't it?
Yes.
And obviously, speaking from my experience, obviously I've become a massive fan of the women's game, especially over the Euros and the World Cup and things like that. Recently, Ellen White, Jill Scott, obviously Queen of the Jungle afterwards and things like that. So the women's game's getting a lot more credit now. It's getting a lot more in the spotlight. There's local clubs like Annick Town, close to myself, who are getting big crowds there. Newcastle women played at St James's Park not long ago, and they had just under 30,000 people there, which is unheard of. In a couple 5-6 years ago, you'd be getting maybe 100 if that. But West Ham women actually, I don't know if you're privy to this or you can talk about this. They actually did a TV show, didn't they, a couple of years ago, around about, I think it was Jack Sullivan, the owner of the West Ham squad. His son took over as director of football for the women, and I think it's on BBC Three. It might be in a couple of series, and it was really insightful. And that was actually my first step into looking and seeing how the women's games ran, and quite the comparisons. The fact that the money in the sport, obviously women's football, there's not as much money. There's a lot of dorms where players will share dorms with each other. Obviously they don't have like the luxury of the sort of meal days. I don't know if anyone watches Ben Foster's YouTube where he puts all these fancy meals on match days. They don't have something too similar. I don't know if that's changed since you coming in, Rhyse. But my point is, I would like to know a little bit about your role in that West Ham women environment and how the game's grown, if that's all right, since you've been there.
Yeah, definitely. So to be honest, it's fairly similar to the academy, in the sense of as soon as I have come in, it was in a good way. From when I came in, my predecessor did a great job. It was kind of like, again, constantly, as you say, it's ever growing. So it's kind of one where we try to keep taking it to the next level. Like, how far can it go? And trying to capitalize on that. So it's very much that basic when I came in is, okay, how do we want the department to run? What are the key focuses? What's the culture, the nutrition amongst players and staff? Are we all aligned on where we want it, or where it is and where we want it? And so what steps needed to be put in place to get to that level? And then around that, I'd say the women's side for me is a bit, because it is a first team, it's a bit more hands-on. It's a bit more match day orientated. So with any first team, you kind of you're working kind of game to game, rather than the academy is more about, it is game to game, but it's more development. So you're still focused on everything else around those matches. It's not all we want success. It's basically, are we helping these players develop to the best they can be? So with women's, it is again like any other first team, men's or women's. It's right, game to game. Our next game is this. Let's prep the week for that game. Do the game, recover, back in, go again. So it's one of those that kind of is a bit more constant, faster paced, which is always fun. It's exciting. I think it's good to have the two sides. I think it's good to have the one where it's massive on physical progression, physical development. We get to really hone in on each individual, like the same we do in the women's, but these ones are more so. It is a team collective as well. It is results driven. We're working towards allowing you to perform at this game, now to recover after this game, and then we reassess and we go again. So it's really good to have the two sides. It allows me to really expand and experience a lot of different things. So we still do like the individual setups with the women. So all of them will get one-to-ones. We'll work out everyone's plans and find out what works for them. What do they enjoy? What's their goals, or what do they want to improve? And that's discussions with the rest of the staff as well, to see like where do we see each player needing to improve. That it's all data driven. It's normally like on the back of that. And then in terms of it's normally travel on match day. Is on weekends, so or midweek games. It's very much prepping the players for, okay, we're going into a match period, so therefore everything becomes focused on fueling up, making sure carbs are high, everyone's feeling good, no one's feeling like fatigued, tired, or like low on energy. They're all ready, they feel ready for the game, and then supporting them through the game day. So whether that's making the recipes and contacting hotels to make sure they've got everything set up for them, and etc., like along the list. And then as soon as we finish the game, it's into recovery mode. It's let's get them all the foods they need to recover, becomes the main focus. And then they'll normally have the day after the game to really look after themselves, recover, and hopefully come back the next day feeling fresh and with the eyes on the next game.
No, class. I mean, it's quite insightful. I mean, the fact that you get to obviously be more hands-on, the match day side of things, and you've probably maybe got a little bit more control. I don't know if that's a term, in a sense of you are able to sort of manage them a bit more than you would sort of the younger age groups in the academy, because obviously they've got parents and you can't be with them 24/7. Obviously the schedule's probably not as intense as the women's team as well. On that side, just a quick one when you mentioned recovery as well. Ice baths, for or against? Just a quick one.
I think that they can definitely help, even if it's a placebo sort of effect in their minds, where they feel like, oh, they're better for it. As long as I always say, that as long as something has a positive effect, or even no effect at all, but they think it's helping, as long as there's no negative effect, then there's no reason not to do it, because it can still give that that edge, whether that's in performance or recovery, if they mentally feel that it's happening.
No, that's spot on. I want to apologise to anyone listening as well when James took a massive gulp just before we started speaking. Sorry about that, Rhys. James, there is a button called a mute button on your mic, just to let you know. Yeah, so I'm a big fan, Rhys. The reason I ask, I'm a big fan, just so I was touching on myself. I love ice baths, for recovery. Being a big lad, I struggle with information. And I do like to train. I train a lot. I do spinning, I used to play football, things like that. And I do love a good ice bath. I'm quite lucky to be near the coast up in Newcastle at Tynemouth. So we'll sometimes go in the sea, for a period of time. I don't know if you've ever sort of practiced that sort of thing yourself. Obviously, I know Wim Hof's big at the moment. Do you tend to do it all or anything?
Do you know what? No, I don't necessarily. I used to more so when I was younger, especially after like rugby and that. Because again, I do think there's 100% a place for them in recovery and stuff like that. I think that they help. They are personally, like from my opinion, they do. I remember coming back from rugby feeling battered, bruised, and as you say, inflamed. And just my option didn't have a bath here, so I used to just jump in a cold shower and just get and put it really cold and use that way. And that's not always the most pleasant, but felt fresh afterwards. I felt a lot better, even if it was just because it was taking my mind away from it. I don't know, but it still did. It did cool me down. It made me feel better. But no, I do like the thought and the practice of, as you say, like going into the sea. I think that's great. It's something that I would do, and I think it'd be a really good experience.
Definitely, mate. If you're ever up this way, if he's playing Newcastle Women's next year or anything like that, or if you're ever up this way for pleasure instead of business, mate, give us a shout. We'll make a everyman dip. Invite everyone on. Exactly. What about you, James? Have you ever done the sea dip, ice bath, things like that?
The day before my wedding. The morning of my wedding. I thought, fuck it. Me and the lads just went in the sea. It was absolutely freezing as well, even though we're in the summer. But yeah, it does sort you out. I think when I was in Malaysia, actually, there was like 2 jacuzzis in our hotel. There was like the normal jacuzzi, and there was like an ice cold one. And honestly, I was sitting that for like as long as I could, and I think, I don't know if it is placebo or not, but you would feel like a lot better coming out of it than before you went in. So yeah, I think I'm for them. I don't do it regularly, but yeah, I think they do make you feel a lot better.
Yeah,
definitely. I'm not sure about going on my wedding day. I think the last thing I want to do is lose inches on my wedding night. I'm not gonna lie, after the cold. So just on that. Sorry,
you get a girlfriend first.
That's true. I've got to get. Thanks for that. We'll have a talk after this. Sorry, Rhys. Right, bring it back to you, Rhys. So you've had an amazing career so far. It's far from over. I would like to know, just before getting to the see no evil, hear no evil, then the future of yourself, the contrast between working with the everyday man or the every man or the every woman, to then work in sort of in the academy side of things, women's football and in men's football and other potential sports. What are the differences and potential challenges that you faced in each avenue or across the board? If you wouldn't mind going into a bit of that for us, please.
Yeah, I think the biggest challenges are probably just the adapting to different environments. I think would be the biggest. I think that you go from, let's say, working with men's in a first team to women's first team straight away. There's going to be lots of differences and lots of changes, and then you throw in like an academy into that, and it's the same as like private practice, working with people of all genders, both genders, and all ages. You still have those kind of those differences, and you do need to take them into consideration and into account, because at the end of the day, the sport's the sport. Like that, in terms of what we prescribe and kind of like focus on that's not going to change. But what does change is how that relates to that individual. So then we need to start thinking about, okay, is it a one-to-one, and therefore we're just dealing with that individual in that environment. Therefore, great, we get that immediate buy-in normally with a one-to-one athlete, because they're very motivated, because again, it's just them out there doing it, whether that's a runner, a cyclist, combat sport, like a fighter, like a boxer or something like that. It's just them. They're very motivated. Whereas if we go to more team sports, it's easier to kind of get individuals who maybe buy-in's a bit harder, where there's a bit more resistance to it, because they aren't someone who naturally would come and seek you out and be like, oh, do you know what, I want to improve this and I want to get better. It's kind of like, oh, it's part of me being here and part of my job, therefore I'll kind of take it in, but they're not massively keen on it or enthused by it. Sorry. So I think that having to adapt from those two environments with, okay, what's their motivation? It's much easier kind of saying, okay, cool, I know they're getting motivated. I know I'm going to really hone in on that part of the job. Whereas the other side, I need to kind of think of ways, or what's the best way of me convincing this person that I can help them and I can support them. And you are finding yourself not just doing the job, but you're also trying to win them over. So which kind of adds a whole nother layer.
Yeah.
And then again, it comes down to, I think also, as I said, the individual. So we see changes from the male sport to female sport as well, because then they're not the same. You can't just treat female athletes the same as male athletes. And that's not in a negative way at all. It's purely just that their makeup is different. There's different requirements. And it is one of those where we're not just going to go, all right, all the studies and everything is based on male research, therefore let's just throw it on females, because that's not fair to them and that's not giving them what they need. So I think that is one of the things we need to, that is probably the biggest adjustment is trying to get that right across both groups. And kind of that understanding that there's also going to be different ways of communicating. There's going to be different phrases or ways of talking between the two populations as well. Like we see, in the way we understand it quite rightly as well, if we see how obviously over the years, the ways that, females are portrayed in the media and in public, that it builds up a lot of, negatives and how females can view themselves or view others, stuff like that. So they've built this kind of like stigma around it that it can be hard for them, like quite understandably. So it's not one of those where we see some of the comments that get thrown around in the men's, which again still aren't acceptable, but that they'll see it as a passing comment, whereas in the men's, most of the time it's nothing. As much as we try and drive it out of the sport or out of it, then we don't want to see it, but it happens, and it's normally them seeing it as a passing comment, and therefore that's it and it's done. Then in the female side, that they might cling on to that and take that a little bit more to heart, and that's just purely through obviously the society as it is at the moment, and that's where that comes down from. So I think that's also like a big challenge is being a people person. It's being able to build these personal skills and build relationships to the point where someone is willing to come to you off their own back and trust you and open up to you. But also, like I said, nutrition's really, really personal. So if someone is willing to put their trust in you to kind of say, what should I be doing? And you're telling them all these things that they should be eating and they can include, that's quite a nice thing for them to say. And that's quite an important thing for them to be willing to be able to be like, okay, cool, I'm freely giving you total control over my eating pretty much. But that's quite a big thing. So I think it's also remembering that building that relationship with them to get to that point is really important and really key.
Yeah, I mean, you've hit on the nail on the head. The fact that it is a trust and a two-way street. And I appreciate where you come from, and it's quite open of you to say, obviously, the comments that women have been getting. Obviously, you're on the ground a lot more than any of us, and you're there seeing that and being involved in it, and the fact that you're behind them, pushing them in the right direction, having that level of trust. I mean, have you ever sort of had many barriers going from the men's to the women's game on the back of that? Again, not to dig too personal on that side of it.
Thankfully, no. I've not noticed any real barriers with it. I think my whole premise around how I work is very much to focus on the person first, in general. So it's yes, they're an athlete, but they are also a person with a lifestyle and family and etc. There's other things going on there rather than just they play sport. So I think the key for me is, no matter what environment I go into, it's all right, let me learn about this person, what motivates them, what do they like, what do they not like, and then therefore if we can build that kind of lifestyle and personal picture, that's only going to help us then translate all the messages I'm trying to give into their sport. So I think that coming in with that kind of mindset kind of takes the foot off of the, oh, we're only here to talk about nutrition, because no, we're here to kind of, build a rapport, build a relationship, build some trust, and therefore it will lead into positive conversations where they know I'm not, from both sides, they know I'm not judging them. They know that I'm not there to pick apart their diets or their food. I'm not there to say, no, like, why are you eating that? Well, you can't eat that because that's not what I do. That's not the role of a nutritionist, and that's not what we encourage. It's very much autonomy. It's giving them that freedom to make their decisions and eat how they feel they need to or they want to. But at the same time, it will positively impact their performance. So that's the key for me is treat them as people first, get to know them, build that rapport, and then because we have that, there's no real need for the tricky side of it or the negative side of it. So we hopefully by doing that we kind of avoid having that in the first place.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's probably the trickiest angle you've got to look for, not just in obviously women's sport, but the academy, working in different sports. Because obviously we've mentioned you've worked with a range, not just football. Obviously you've worked in golf. I mean, the transition is something that I could imagine would be so tough, and the fact that you've done it, smashed it, and continue to thrive is really actually something we were looking forward to getting you on and having a bit of a probe at. I hope I've been a bit gentle with you tonight on that side. I know before we sort of wrap up and find out about the future of yourself, I think James is going to do see no evil, hear no evil, because I'm the Lewis today and he's the me, lucky bastard, being as good looking as me. So James, over to you, mate.
So there's a little section of our podcast where it's called See No Evil, Hear No Evil, or Hear No Evil, See No Evil. We don't know which way it goes around anymore. But essentially, we're going to ask you for a recommendation of a book, a movie, a podcast, something that you've listened to or read or watched that's helped you, or something that you do just to get by on your day-to-day business.
That's I knew this would be the trickiest bit for me, to be honest. To be fair, I listen to a couple podcasts, but they're typically like nutrition podcasts or like around performance practice. I'm not a big book reader, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I can't sit and read a book the whole time.
Yeah.
Neither is James. It's fine. Don't worry. He can't read. He's from Sunderland.
From Hartlepool.
I don't know. I say one that I've started listening to is the Hexis podcast. It's a performance podcast still, but I like the fact that it's kind of like ex-professional athletes on there as well, like say Sam Warburton and stuff like that. But they do discuss the real nitty-gritty of their backstory as well, and in their rise to in his particular was coming up and being for the British and Irish Lions, captained it, and still how that felt and how he ended up being really raw and honest with it. As well as obviously some of them being a bit more scientific and practical based, like more in line with my job, but it's something that I've actually got really into, and I like the contrast between the two, having some that will help me develop as a practitioner, but also having those those people that were my idols, kind of going through the sport myself and hearing their honest backstories and their childhood up to their playing career and so on. So yeah, that's probably the one from me at the moment. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. I recommend you a book. I know you're not a book reader. You can get the audio book. You were talking about habits. There's a book called Atomic Habits. I don't know if you've heard about it. Really easy read as well, but I think you might enjoy that.
No, did you know what? I've been recommended it, and people at work have given me they've recommended so many books. I've actually asked them to write them all down so that I can actually go out and buy. Because I will make a habit of going out, buying these books, and I'll give them a read because I want to give them a go.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, James, you smashed that, mate. Thank you very much. So yeah, well, so Rhyse, now we've talked about your career up to date. What does the future hold for yourself? Do you have a strategy? Have you got a potential move lined up? Do we need to get you a move? I know some agents so we can get you. So you're at West Ham. What's the next step for you, mate?
Yeah, to be honest, it's just keep progressing. I think as much as I can. I'm really enjoying the role at the moment, and I think that for me, I'd love to keep expanding on the different sports that I get to work with. I think with like private clients that there's a couple I've done now, like in terms of different sports that weren't my usual, like such as like, junior karting. So people are like young athletes aspiring for the F1 sort of stuff like that, and signed into that kind of pathway that I never, as much as I love F1, I never thought I'd get a chance to like kind of, work with people in the industry. And it really was, exciting. It's so different. And I was like, oh, do you know what? That was great. Then obviously getting the opportunity to work with golfers and then, rugby, etc. And I'd love to just keep expanding that field of sports and just kind of seeing they all have like, it's all nutrition in the day, but at the same time, there are like nuances, there are differences that cover every sport. So I'd love to kind of just tap into as many as possible, as well as myself in terms of, football, rugby, etc., and kind of keep taking it to, whilst in the elite level, keep taking it as high as I can go. So whether that's opportunities down the line to, maybe work with first teams and stuff like that to kind of experience that side of it in the men's game as well, I think would be a great opportunity in like football, rugby, and, however far it can go. Massive NBA fan, so you never know if anything ever opened up over there. That'd be exciting. But no, yeah, I think for me, it's just keep personally developing, keep trying to improve, and then hopefully, just see where it goes. Hopefully, just keep progressing, and get a few more opportunities down the line.
Exactly, mate. And we've got everything crossed for you, to be fair, mate. To be honest, you've been absolutely tremendous tonight. You've been really insightful, and it's just what our listeners want, really. They want to hear, the nitty-gritty facts. They love a good journey, a real hero we can get behind. So, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you, mate. We wish you the best of luck as well. We'll be keeping an eye out for as long as you're with West Ham Academy and Women's. We'll be keeping an eye out. If we play Newcastle Women's next year, we'll have to come and see you. Bit of rivalry. Well, it might heckle you. I'm definitely going to heckle you on the sidelines. I'm not going to lie. So I'll be Damien Dogs abuse on the sidelines.
I'd expect nothing less. Fine.
Exactly. Now, for anyone, before we let you go, because I've took a lot of your time, I appreciate that. Before we let you go, where can we find you on socials? Or where can our guests or listeners find you? Sorry.
So I'm on Instagram at Coach Rhyse, and that's me sort of just plug in, nutrition knowledge and education, as well as some insights into what I do on a day-to-day basis and who I work with and how I go about my role. I also have my website, which is www.rhysegonsalves.com, and that's basically a bit more about me, about my business, and my work with athletes and the general public in terms of working with nutrition. And anyone who's interested in, or has any questions even about nutrition and just wants some general guidance and maybe wants to build on that, then that's where to find me and get in touch.
Top man. And for anyone like James who can't spell, it's Rhyse with Rhyse, just for anyone who can't spell like James. But Rhyse, it's been absolutely tremendous, mate. You've been great. I've already said if I could afford you, I would want to hire you myself. You've got some great feedback on your website and some great programs. So thank you so much for your time, mate, and all the best.
Thank you, Rhyse.
Thank you very much for having me, guys. Been really
Top
good.
Man. Take care, buddy. Thanks you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Let's go. Time to grind, get inside your mind. Yeah, we working overtime. That's the only way to climb. We gon' make it in our prime. Signing on the dotted line. Cashing checks left and right. That's the way I'm living life.